of experiences, a lot of life experiences. What Marie said about, in fact, what Marie was talking about, there's the reason that I'm doing this is not because I'm an expert, okay? And I'm upfront about that. If you come and sit before my counsel, the first thing I will tell you is the minute I start talking from my own wisdom, to shut me down, I'm full, call me full of baloney, because my wisdom can't come from me. And no, I'm not trying to be pious today. I just love this Bible. My wisdom doesn't come from me. Anything that I do, God's given me such experiences. I was a cop in Greensboro for 11 years, and while I was there, I really, I thought to myself, this job's okay, it's all right, but half of the time I was in domestic conflict. I was in marital conflict. I was in houses before they had the chance to put on their makeup just right, to fix their clothes. I mean, they had all these chances. They didn't have any time to do that. I was in the middle of their business on the spur of the moment, and many times I got to hear them in their raw form. In church, many times you walk in the front door of the church, and that's not what you get. You get the pretty painted-on smile. You've argued the whole way to church for one. Whatever it may be, you just argued about something many times. I do believe I hate to say this, it's not doctrinally correct, but I believe that children can be possessed between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8:30. I do. I believe there's something real about that. The horns come out. My 4-year-old will look at you and go, Daddy, and I'll go, what do I call you, Savannah? What are you to Daddy? I'm your cherubim with horns. And she is. And by the way, I've been married for 18 years. My wife, April, and I are 10 years apart. We got married when she was 21 and I was 30. And yes, I had to stalk a lot of playgrounds to find her, but I did. It took. I told you I wasn't politically correct. We're not going there today, okay? Real, okay? Real, big word today, R-E-A-L, real. No, but I have an awesome wife. The reason that I mention that is that because of that gap in our age and because of all of my stubbornness, we had what I would call a horrendous time the first 7 to 10 years of our marriage. It was awful. It was. We were both in a house where we were both right and neither one of us were backing down. I can think of anniversary after anniversary that I ruined. I can think of a time that we went to Daryl's in Greensboro, the beautiful restaurant, by the way, if you've ever been there, roadside chicken sandwiches to die for. What was I talking about? I love the place, but we were there. I remember to this moment. We were there. We were in the parking lot of Daryl's. My mother called on the phone, and I'm sitting there thinking, should I answer it? It's my wife's birthday. We're here for April's birthday. Should I get this call? And you know what? Rule number one, do you see the problem already? I'm sitting here battling with whether or not I should pay attention to my mama when my wife we're there for her birthday. And so I decided to take the call. And no, it did not end well. It did not end well. It was. Let's just say this: there was such an eruption in the Daryl's parking lot that she ended up saying, "I'm leaving. I'm leaving." She walks out of the Daryl's parking lot. I'm trying to say, "Come on, get back in the car." She's not going to get back in the car. She ends up going to a phone booth, I think there were phone booths back then. And she ends up calling a friend to come pick her up, 2 of our friends from High Point, and she doesn't come home that night. All because of what? Because life is real. Problems in marriage are real. Difficulties happen in marriage in so many different levels, in so many different ways. There are things in our marriage that I may not detail today, but we went through every possible scenario, it seems like, in our marriage during that 10-year period. And it was only by the grace of God that we're still together. It was only by God's grace. In fact, the one thing that we both had decided even when we were married and thought it was our goal to make one another miserable, is that we weren't going to leave one another. For whatever reason, I guess we were just both very sadistic people. Hey, you know what? I'm not going to leave you, but I'm going to be sure you're going to be the most miserable person on the planet for the next 30 years, okay? And that's what it felt like at times. We were. And the thing was, we really did. Each person in here will understand exactly what I'm about to say. We loved each other, but we didn't like each other. We really did. We loved one another, but we didn't like one another. And it was miserable. It was one of those things where, sure, was she young? Yes. Had she not even fully developed into the personality that she would be later? Yes. But then I was just stubborn, and I had no excuse. I was just stubborn and set in my ways, and I was not where God wanted me to be. I was a police officer. I was full of arrogance. I was pompous. The fact I've got to figure out some way my wife never to see this because I'm admitting it all. I was all those things. And all that add up. What it all added up to was I was not trying to be a godly spouse. I was not trying to be a godly spouse to her. The one thing I'll do, and I want to brag on her this morning. The one thing about our marriage that turned things wasn't me. I wasn't the one. I'm not the reason that we have the marriage we have now, and we give God the glory. But there came a point in time in April's life where she began to say to herself, and she began to be convicted about some things in her life, and she said, you know what, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. He will not change. He will not be the husband that I know that you want him to be. And she's saying this while saying it this way, although I believe every single thing that he tells others about what they should do about their marriage, I just wish he'd practice it in his own marriage. And I heard, I learned this. We talked about this many years later, about her longing and desire, her craving in her heart. That craving being that she wanted something in our marriage that I was not even attempting to give her. And on top of that, God wanted me to give her that, and I wasn't attempting to give it to her. Many times sins in marriage can be omission. A lot of times we're thinking, well, I'm not going out and hitting bars every night and fooling around. I'm not doing that. And you're thinking, you know what? Sometimes omission is much worse, because at least with some of the overt acts, you know exactly where the offense is. But when omission's there, it's easy to play it off and go, I don't know what our problem is, as I'm sitting on the couch watching TV with dishes in the sink. And clothes to be washed, all these things here, lunches to be made the next morning, clothes to be ironed to have ready for the next morning so the kids don't get up to no clothes in the morning. All these things, and I'm sitting on the couch going, why is she mad? What is it? What am I doing? Right? What's her problem? We can get there, though. Husbands can be the worst about it at times. We can be. I'm here to speak for the male race today, and I'm here in a minute to answer your questions and go under Chinese water torture, maybe some waterboarding even. But I know what we can do. I know how we can be. I know that already that women battle with one particular thing. They battle with contentiousness for their husband. This resentment that you don't even have to work to have toward your husband. You don't have to. And it wears off many cases, within 2 years of the marriage, 18 months, 2 years, you're already resenting him. There's this resentment because the oxytocin's, it's gone, the chemical reaction, it's worn off. And then you're sitting there looking at him going, I can't believe I married him. I can't believe I married him. That's not the same man I married, But you think about it, we do that happens. Gary Chapman, I was with him 2 months ago, and Gary Chapman was talking about his book. He's one of his new books, and he said, well, in particular, his wife and him dated for 2 years, and then got married. So the honeymoon was over on honeymoon night. In their case, the oxytocin was gone, and they were already at odds with one another. So this happens in so many marriages. We reach that point where you're frustrated and where you don't know what to do. It's funny you mentioned grace earlier, Marie, because that's probably one of the biggest things. If you, in Marriage Triage, what I do is, and I'm going to kind of give you take you on a short journey. I don't want to talk the whole time. I want to hear from you today too. But one of the things that we have to have in the course of our marriage is such a sense of grace and such a sense of always remembering, you know what, God, you've forgiven me. You've given this much grace to me. You've given this much forgiveness to me. And yet I can't seem to give a little bit to him or a little bit to her. And it's easy to get there. It is. When I was a police officer in Greensboro, I used to love to write speeding tickets. I know I'm not going to get very many amens on that one. We said real. We said real today, okay? I did. I mean, there were places in my zone that I used to call it like shooting fish in a barrel. You know, it's just in just the right place. And I loved sitting there with radar. And it's crazy. And I was always good about one thing. You know what? Think about it. You always go, how much room does an officer give you? How much room, 10 miles, 11? I gave people 15 miles. I did. I wouldn't write them a ticket till 15 over. So when I'd stop them and they would say, can you give me a break? I said, I did the first 14 miles. I did. I gave you one for every mile. But as I stopped those people, do you know not one of those people ever looked at me, looked back at me and said, you give me that ticket because I deserve it. I deserve it. Give it to me. I deserve every last mile I was going. No, they didn't want justice in their life. They wanted grace. Ultimately, they wanted grace. And that's the one component that is the hardest thing for us to give in our marriage. In Ephesians 5, in particular, for husbands, it tells husbands that we're to love Christ like Christ loved the church. And you can take a lesson from that. Because I began to study, what exactly does that mean? Ephesians 5:18 through 22, in that area in your Bible, that's what it says. But then I said, okay, what did Christ do for the church? And then you go to Romans 5:8, and it's